Welcome to this explainer. Look, we need to talk about that perfectly smooth, glowing Buy Now, Pay Later button you see everywhere online right now. You know the one. It feels like absolute magic, right? A couple of quick taps and boom, that $300 jacket or the latest tech gadget is yours for, what, 75 bucks today? But here's the thing. Beneath that highly engineered, flawless checkout experience lies this rapidly growing financial abyss, and it's quietly ensnaring millions of people, especially Gen Z. So we really have to ask the big question that's just staring us right in the face here. Is Buy Now, Pay Later really just free money? I mean, it's an incredibly seductive illusion, right? 0% interest, instant approval, and what feels like literal endless purchasing power right at your fingertips. But what if I told you this frictionless digital utopia isn't some favor from the fintech gods, but actually a carefully engineered psychological trap, one designed specifically to bypass your rational brain? Okay, picture this. It's a totally relatable scenario. You're scrolling on your phone late at night and you see this expensive, high-ticket item. Normally, that massive price tag would make you pause, right? You'd check your bank account, maybe sweat a little, but then you see it, 4 easy payments. Suddenly, you feel kind of wealthy. You effortlessly acquire the item, experiencing pure, zero-friction, instant gratification. You don't feel like you're taking on a debt instrument, no way. Your brain just categorizes it as a helpful tool to buy stuff. But this checkout illusion, this massive disconnect between what you can actually afford today and your future repayment burden, well, that is exactly where the trap springs shut. Which brings us to weaponizing consumer psychology. The secret sauce here lies in something called dark patterns. By definition, these are manipulative or deceptive digital interface designs intended to steer users toward irrational financial decisions. Basically, research shows these designs intentionally reduce your sense of perceived risk. They completely short-circuit the part of your brain that usually stopped to ask, wait a minute, can I actually afford this? And honestly, you've probably encountered these dark patterns without even realizing it. We're talking about countdown timers creating this false, anxiety-inducing sense of urgency. The BNPL option, already pre-selected as your default payment method, literally forcing you to actively work to not use it. Artificial scarcity cues screaming only 2 left in stock. And, of course, those buried, super unclear disclosures about what actually happens if you miss a payment. These aren't just design accidents, guys. They are calculated triggers designed to force emotional, impulsive buying instead of careful financial planning. Let's look at how BNPL actually profits. We can really see the reality here by contrasting two major players, Affirm and Klarna. Now, with Affirm, that 0% APR isn't magic. It's subsidized entirely by high merchant fees. The merchant pays a hefty premium, so you don't have to. But then, look at Klarna. While they also charge merchants, their public filings reveal an increasing reliance on consumer service fees, specifically late reminder fees. The takeaway here is brutally simple. If you aren't paying the interest, someone else is, or the platform is simply waiting patiently for you to slip up. 3 to 6%. That right there is the hidden merchant tax charged per transaction by companies like Affirm. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would a retailer gladly pay a fee that's often double what a standard credit card processor charges? Well, it's because BNPL drastically manipulates consumer habits. In fact, data shows up to 70% of users spend more when using these apps. Shoppers buy more stuff, and they abandon their carts way less. The retailer wins, the BNPL app wins, but the consumer? You're left holding the bag. The financial reality happening behind the scenes is genuinely eye-opening. Looking at Klarna's 2024 revenue breakdown, 76% comes from transaction and service revenue, while a growing 24% is straight-up interest income from their longer-term financing. But the hidden kicker here? A massive 16% chunk of that transaction and service revenue now comes from consumer service fees, which, let's be real, are mostly late reminder fees. They market themselves as this friendly, modern alternative to credit cards, yet they are increasingly profiting off consumer mishaps and missed deadlines. Now let's talk about the phantom debt crisis. Listen to this really urgent quote from regulators at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They describe it as phantom debt, growing financial fragility, invisible to both lenders and borrowers. What this actually means in practice is terrifying. Because these microloans are marketed as payment options rather than traditional loans, they largely bypass traditional credit bureaus. They don't do deep credit checks or report consistently, so this massive mounting debt simply doesn't show up on a standard credit report. By the time a lender or even the borrower themselves realizes they're in way over their head, it's far too late. And the downstream consequences of this, they're staggering. 41%. According to the data, late payment rates among BNPL users hit an absolutely astonishing 41%, with some current metrics pushing past 42%. This isn't just a dry financial metric on a spreadsheet. It represents a massive wave of severe psychological distress, anxiety, and depression. Detaching emotion from spending through this digital frictionlessness paradoxically fuels the exact impulse buying that generates crippling financial anxiety later on. It becomes this vicious cycle of instant gratification followed immediately by long-term panic.
So, how about escaping the BNPL trap?
Look, it's not all doom and gloom. The amazing thing here is that the exact same behavioral science used to trick you can actually be used to protect you. Here are 3 super practical choice architecture interventions to help break the cycle. Step 1. Reintroduce friction. Use browser extensions or cooling off apps that force a mandatory waiting period before you can hit checkout. Make yourself wait. Step 2. Separate your discretionary spending accounts. Literally put a physical and digital barrier between your bills and your fun money. And step 3, set default budgeting caps within your banking apps. These simple steps intentionally interrupt that impulse buying loop and restore your psychological awareness of what you are actually spending. Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative question to ponder today. In a totally frictionless, cashless society, are you controlling your spending or is it controlling you? Next time you see that glowing buy now, pay later button, I want you to remember the dark patterns, those hidden fees, and the phantom debt we talked about. Just take a breath, reintroduce a little bit of friction into your life, and take your financial power back. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you on the next one.